That was Sophie Carr with Tingle Toes. You're on 94.9. It is 4:15 and it's Tuesday afternoon. That means it's time for Creation Ministries International. And this afternoon we have Dr. Don Batten on the line from Creation Ministries. Dr. Don, of course, has his PhD from the University of Sydney. He's got Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. Super smart. We love having you on, Dr. Don, because you really know what you're talking about. And we just love learning all about creation and evolution. It's always so exciting. How are you?
Hey, Mick, how are you?
Very good. It's awesome having you. And today, particularly, I know it'll be cool because we're going to talk a little bit about cancer. And I'm guessing we're going to talk about how cancer proves evolution can't work. But I guess we should start by asking, what is cancer?
Well, cancer is basically when our cells reproduce, multiply out of control. That's basically it. So basically with breast cancer, for example, you've got a lump that'll form and then the lump will continue to grow. And if you don't do something about it, it can spread to the rest of the body. And lymphoma is like a cancer of the lymph system, so it sort of goes through the lymph system. Leukemia is a cancer of the blood, so it'll actually go through the circulatory system, through your blood vessels and things, right through your whole body. So, brain tumour obviously is in the brain. So that's what happens with it's basically cells reproducing out of control.
Okay, well, cells reproduce anyway. What's the difference between these cells and other cells?
Well, that's the thing. Normally the cells, yes, occasionally they do divide, and, for example, we're producing new blood cells all the time. So, but that's under strict control. So we've got systems in our body that actually make sure that we only get the right number of cells, not too many. And those systems have to be broken for us to get cancer.
Yep, and so these are basically broken cells reproducing, and that's pretty much what it is.
Pretty much what it is, yep.
Yeah. Yep. Do animals get cancer?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, animals get all sorts of cancer. You even find cancer in fossils of dinosaurs and things, like a T-Rex with a brain tumour. And so that's a problem for people who say, oh, God created over millions of years, because they're saying that God created animals with cancer, before humans rebelled against God and brought about the corruption of the creation. So, animals get cancer, and
but sharks don't.
Oh, that's a myth, actually.
Uh-huh.
That's a myth. That was a myth of the 1990s, and people bought up shark cartilage at health food stores to eat shark cartilage, thinking it's going to protect them from getting cancer.
I think they still do.
They do. Sharks get cancer. In fact, they even get cancer of the cartilage.
Okay, so that's pointless.
so much for all the people taking the supplement of shark cartilage to protect them from cancer. Yeah, that's an urban myth, that one.
Wow. And genetic mutations, are they like an engine of evolution, or are they mostly harmful?
Well, that's what cancer tells us, because cancer's caused, one of the major causes of cancers is mutations.
Yep.
And it underlines the fact that mutations wreck us, they don't create us, whereas evolution needs mutations to build us, to create new features that weren't there before.
Yep.
But all we see is destruction. The cancer research has revealed some amazing things about our design. For example, we've got 3 different systems that protect us from cancer.
Wow.
And those systems have to be broken for us to get cancer. Most people don't know that 60% of people never get cancer in their life, so that means 40% of people do. It's actually slightly less than, about 38% of women get cancer, about 40% of men get cancer.
Wow.
But 60% approximately of people never get cancer. And the reason is that their protective systems are actually functioning properly. So basically there's three systems, and one's called tumour suppressor genes, and as it says, it suppresses tumours. And people might have heard of P53, for example. This is one of these genes. So basically, this is the system that protects our cells from going rogue and reproducing out of control. So there's a whole very complex system which says the cell detects that itself has gone rogue and is reproducing out of control, and it actually commits suicide.
Wow.
Yeah, so this very complex system, obviously you want that to be a really, really robust system, because you don't want cells just willy-nilly committing suicide for no reason. So there's all these checks and balances built into this amazing system. It's called apoptosis, a technical word, but it's basically cells committing suicide when they go rogue. And then that system protects us. That's a major system that protects us. Well, you need to have that damaged by mutation so that it doesn't work. Yep. And so that's one of the major causes of cancer is damage to this protective system that makes us vulnerable to cancer.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, well, that's one of them.
Yeah, so another one called, it sounds a bit technical, proto-oncogenes. Well, people would know that onco relates to cancer, like oncology, the study of cancer.
Yep.
So proto-oncogenes are genes that sort of are forerunners to cancer. It sounds like it's a bad thing. But in fact, they control the rate of cell division. So you might imagine you're driving your car and you put your foot on the accelerator rather than the brake.
Yes.
And you put it flat to the floor, so you're going helter-skelter down the road and you're meant to stop. So basically these proto-oncogenes are like the brake. And when it's damaged, it becomes the accelerator. And the cells reproduce out of control. Wow. And there's over 100 mutations known to damage the system, to wreck it and make us vulnerable to cancer. People might have heard of RAS. It's one that's related to lung cancer. RAS gene. That's one of these proto-oncogenes. But the third type is mutations in the DNA repair systems. So we've got this amazing system that actually runs along the DNA and finds letters that have actually accidentally changed. You know, like if you get hit by a cosmic ray or something and a letter gets changed, damaged. We've got this system that actually screens along at a great rate, I might add, on the DNA, checking all the letters to make sure they're what they should be. And that's the DNA repair systems. And there's one of the genes people might have heard of called BRCA2, which is it's connected with breast cancer and ovarian cancer and some other cancers. And this is particularly one of the ways in which people become vulnerable to breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So these three protective systems would have been fully functional in Adam and Eve. God created the first people perfect. They had the systems, and they would never have got cancer in the beginning. Wow. So this is something we see in today's world.
And I assume that's possibly why they live for nearly 1,000 years, and obviously our lives have been getting shorter because there's been a breakdown in those systems over time. Is that like generational breakdown?
Yeah, that's basically what it is. We're running downhill. We're not going uphill. We're not getting better. People say, but we're living longer. But we live longer because of modern medicine, not because we're actually fitter.
Yep.
So we've got all sorts of things that actually, pointing us towards living longer, but they're actually due to modern medicine, not because we're fitter, not because we're actually improved. We're actually running downhill. So, as I say, 40% of people will get cancer in their lifetime today, but back in the beginning, it would have been zero initially.
Yep. Wow, that's incredible. I mean, as far as, people getting cancer now more than they used to, we can see how these things are, obviously, our children, our children's children, it sounds horrible when you think about it, but they're going to see more destruction in their cells than what we do.
Yeah, that's it. That's about it. Of course, it's not just mutations that cause cancer. I mean, there's some viruses cause cancer, and most people would have heard of the human papillomavirus, which is strongly related to cervical cancer. So basically, and also things like hepatitis B and C, about 75% of liver cancers are caused by those viruses. And people know about the Tassie devil, the facial tumours. They're actually infectious. They transfer from one to the other. So there's viruses, but there's also lifestyle choices too, which actually affect, and we're well aware of these. I mean, people know that smoking, for example, will make you vulnerable to lung cancer.
Yep.
So about 30% of all deaths are actually due to smoking. So, and it's estimated that in America, United States, where they've done a lot of research on this, that 45% of cancer deaths are actually preventable by lifestyle change.
Wow. So,
like, for example, sexual promiscuity, sleeping around, increases your risk of being infected with HPV, the human papillomavirus, and then you get cervical cancer, for example.
Yep.
Diet, like alcohol is becoming well known as being a major risk factor in things like esophageal cancer and stomach cancer. Just things like what we eat, like some of the processed foods that are like smoked things.
Yep.
They've got smoke in, and the smoke that's actually used to smoke food has the same carcinogenic things in it as cigarette smoke.
It's like smoked salmon, for instance.
Smoked salmon, for example. I know one guy, a professor at university I knew, who died of esophageal cancer, and he loved his smoked fish. He's married to a Swedish lady, and they love their smoked fish. And
wow.
I'm sure it was a risk factor in him getting esophageal cancer.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. Look, we're going to jump into a little break right now. We have Dr. Don Batten on the phone from Creation Ministries International, talking to us about cancer and how cancer is part of a system, I guess, that's going backwards. It, in many ways, proves that evolution can't work. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about this. If you have any questions for Dr. Don, please send them through to our text line, 0401 949 949. That was Patrick Maybury with Holy Spirit Come. You're on Rima 94.9. It's 21 minutes to 5. And we have Dr. Don Batten on the line from Creation Ministries International. By the way, if you do have any questions later on, and, you can't send us a text message then, it'll be too late, just go to creation.com. There's thousands of pages of information there. Creation.com is awesome. But right now, if you do have any questions for Dr. Don, please send them through to our text line, 0401 949 949. Now, Dr. Don, we've been talking about cancer. And, you're sort of proving to us how evolution kind of can't work. But I just sort of throw in there cancer. One of the things that I know, I've been to the skin cancer clinic many times. Every time I go in there, I think they get a little laser gun ready. They go, oh, here he comes. We'll just start blasting him. It's huge in Australia. Melanoma. My mum's had it. I've had stuff cut out of me. Tell us a bit about melanoma. Is it just like a normal cancer, or?
Yeah, it's a normal cancer, but it's of the skin, and basically it's moles that go rogue, usually. And estimated 90% of melanoma is actually due to UV exposure, especially shortwave UV, and of course we get plenty of that in Australia with sun exposure.
Yeah.
So basically you minimise your risk of melanoma by not getting too much, high amount of shortwave UV. Yep. Which, of course, everybody knows, slip, slop, slap and all that. And, my wife's had a couple of melanomas removed, and thankfully early enough to not have spread.
Yep.
But melanoma is pretty deadly if you don't get it early, so people need to take care. I mean, I've got a Scottish background, so I've got this sort of reddish hair and what I've got left of it, and freckles and things, and so I go to a skin check doctor who's also a Scottish background, has similar skin to me, so I know he takes a special care at checking them all. So, yeah, it's something we all need to be aware of, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it obviously just spreads in the same way. The little cells start going a bit rogue and multiplying.
That's right. And they call metastasize. That's when basically they spread beyond the little mole that actually started in, and then it's because it spreads through the whole body, and you don't last for very long normally. Although there's some amazing medical developments happening which hold some hope, but at present, basically, you just don't want to get it to start with.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do these sort of mutations, do they ever add useful information to DNA?
Well, that's the problem. The systems we're talking about are so sophisticated and so complicated that they're much easier to break than they are to make. And that's the problem with mutations. As they destroy things, they don't create things. You know, for example, that system that cells commit suicide, there's so many different components to it that all have to work together. And not one of those components could ever come about by accidents in existing information in the DNA. So they just shout at us that these things were created by an superior intelligence, far above our intelligence, in fact, and that mutations actually destroy us, they don't create us. So it can't be the mechanism of evolution.
With so many components that have to all work together, if just one of them breaks, does that break the whole system?
Well, often not. And this is another thing, is that there's redundancy built into these things, and how can redundancy evolve? That's another thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, it just doesn't work. So I think somebody sent in a question about fruit flies being mutated, and
I had a question here. Can lab experiments like mutating fruit flies demonstrate evolution in action, or do they just produce defective organisms?
Yeah, well, that's the point, because 100 years ago when they discovered mutations, they got very excited that this was the mechanism by which you could get new genetic information and new features, like put feathers on reptiles where they weren't before, or develop chromosome structures where they weren't there before, all sorts of things. So they thought, mutations, here we are, we have the mechanism for evolution. So they got really excited about that, and they got these Drosophila, the fruit ferment flies that are so popular in lab experiments even today.
Yep.
And they zapped them with radiation. They treated them with chemicals that induced mutations, and they were so excited to find that no, all they got were defective flies.
Okay, well, they certainly proved something.
Flies with no wings, flies with stumpy wings, flies with misshapen wings, flies with different coloured eyes, or eyes in the wrong spot, or legs in the wrong spot.
Again, so they're losing information, they're not gaining.
They're messing it up. And so there's great excitement for that. But it took about 30 or 40 years probably before the excitement died down. They realised it can't be the mechanism. But they've gone quiet on mutations today. They don't talk about mutations much at all. They just want to talk about natural selection. And, we don't have a problem with natural selection, but it doesn't create anything. It just selects.
Yep.
So, mutations are necessary for evolution, but they don't talk about them much because I think when you study some of the amazing biology of living things, it's clear that mutations can't explain them.
Absolutely. Well, what does the Bible say about the origin of cancer and the hope for overcoming it?
Well, that's the thing. You go back to Adam and Eve in the beginning, and God said when He finished creating everything, creating the people, He said everything was very good. And we talk about the Garden of Eden. It was paradise, and there was no death and suffering. But where death and suffering came about because of sin, the first people, Adam and Eve, rebelled against God, basically told Him to get lost, and He withdrew some of His sustaining power. And it says in Genesis chapter 3 that death came through sin. To basically dust to dust, ashes to ashes. We say that at funeral services. And of course, that's what the New Testament, the later part of the Bible, talks about Jesus in terms of the last Adam, calls Him the last Adam. Jesus comes to undo what the first Adam caused. Yep. And the first Adam caused death and suffering and disease. The last Adam, Jesus, comes to undo what He did. How did He do that? Well, He paid the penalty for sin by dying on the cross for us. He died our death in our place on the cross. And also, he went around healing people. Everybody knows about the healing miracles of Jesus. Why did He heal people? Well, He had compassion on people, but it was more than that. It was actually a statement that He was the one sent by God to fix up what Adam did. So Adam brought death and suffering and disease. Jesus even raised the dead.
Yep.
And because he himself was raised from the dead because he conquered death. So, and then we look at the latter part of the Bible, right over in the end in Revelation, talks about a new heavens, a new earth, and various places talk about this, where there be no more death and suffering and disease. And so we look forward to that. And so those have come through Jesus to have faith in God, faith in what he's done through Jesus, will be part of the new heavens and new earth, where there's no more death and suffering. And I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I think many of us are. Oh, wow, Dr. Don Batten, what an awesome week. I thank you so much for your time again. And, of course, for filling in. We had a few name changes over the last week, and thank you so much. And we look forward to the next time you're on.
Yeah, thanks, Mick. Good to talk to you.
You are on 94.9 this afternoon. It is 13 minutes to 5. We've got Al City up next with Alligator Sky.